I'm McClendon with the Good Old Gamers here. I'm here with Brandon Gentry, as always. And we are sitting here with Mr. Richard Moss of Pints Pixels.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for taking some time with us today.
Yeah, appreciate it.
No problem.
It's a pretty sweet setup you got going on in here.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
We just had to stand in here and with our jaws on the ground for a second and kind of take it all in.
It's I have to say, the old saying is if I do say so myself, I enjoy just being up here. It's only really come together in the last couple of weeks or so. Since we got all the games up here and plugged in and all the artwork finished and all the tables and everything in place, and it just started to really come together probably a couple of weeks ago. And just having the music videos playing and having the games turned on and stuff. It's just I don't know how everyone else. I mean, so far it seems to be positively received but of course it's mostly friends and family that have come in so far. So interested to see what the public thinks. But personally, I'm pleased with what we've been able to build.
We got listeners all over the place. We even got some in Germany. So I guess we should probably explain what Pints Pixels is for everyone who's not in the know. And
it's Huntsville, Alabama. If you're familiar with that, we got listeners up there, hopefully. But it's here. You want me to
talk about it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we're in downtown Huntsville. There's the new sort of what they're calling the Mercantile Building. I used to call it the Mason Building, but they've got this big neon sign out there now from UG White Mercantile that moved in. They bought the building and opened a second location here, and then we're leasing this top floor from them. But it's a restaurant, bar, arcade. We try to stay away from using the term barcade. Just because that's technically a trademarked word, so we don't advertise using that word. Okay. But people do know that term. It's becoming somewhat common. So But anyway, so we don't ever officially use that. But I mean, at the same time, if you say to someone that that's what we are, they'll know what you mean, right? So we have vintage. We're pretty much totally vintage on the video games. We've got about 40 or so. I'm not sure what the latest count actually is, but. I'm pretty sure it's right around 40 video games, ranging from probably 79 or 80 to, meaning 1979 or 80 to like maybe 92 or 93 for the newest game here. Nice. And then really the funny thing is on the pinball side of it, we almost kind of pick up where the video games stop. So we really go from more of the early 90s up through modern.
Current. 90s had like a pretty big pinball resurgence.
Yes, there's, I mean basically, the most collectible games in pinball are from that period. And,
a lot of movie pinball machines from that time.
I mean, the most, anyone that's in the pinball, knows this, but, the Addams Family. I mean, that's the best-selling pinball of all time. And that was in 90, I think, maybe 5 or something like that. Great game, fantastic game, and there were a lot of games there's so many good ones from that era, and so that's where I decided to really focus the pinball part of this. And the thing is, even if you get a new pinball game, like they just announced Ghostbusters, from Stern,
I've already been.
That's going to be a huge seller, by the way. I'm telling you right now. In terms of, I really believe in terms of things made since like 2000, that's probably going to be the new best-selling pinball game. Now, nothing is going to touch Addams Family or the stuff from the 90s, probably. But we are on a bit of a resurgence again now, and which is great. And that game is I think it's going to be huge. I mean, it has to play well. We'll see. We don't know that yet, but it looks phenomenal. And it's a wonderful license. I think it's really well suited for a pinball game. We're going to get one too, by the way. But anyways, my point on all that is you get a brand new pinball game. Yeah, it's brand new, but you know what? It's also still pinball. It's still two flippers and trying to keep a ball alive and trying to get multi-ball and trying to hit ramps and pop bumpers and drop targets, and I mean it's still they've really not. I mean, a pinball today, go back to the early 80s. I mean, even comparing to the early 80s games, there's a difference in the way pins look from then to now, but nothing like the difference that you would see in a video game from then to now. Yeah. I mean, they're completely unrecognizable as being the same thing almost. So But with pinball, there's not that great of a lead. So it still feels retro, even though it's a modern game.
I know of one pinball machine I saw, the Southern Fried Game Room Expo we went to last year. They had it was mostly an LCD board with a touch sensor for the ball. Had a few bumpers, and it was really cool because you could change the whole theme of the machine anytime you wanted. But at the same time, it was missing the things that made it a pinball machine. So
that's the multimorphic. Is that
Yeah,
they have some neat tech. I think it's still only about 2/3 baked.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. They're trying to walk. I think they have to walk a fine line with what they're trying to do, because they're trying to really innovate, and I applaud them for it. But at the same time, most pinheads aren't really looking for huge innovation because they just like pinball the way it is.
Yeah.
So you've got to, and you need that crowd to sell anything. So how you've got to be innovative and yet still nostalgic enough, or still have enough of a classic pinball feel to keep that crowd interested. So it's going to be tough for them, but I hope they can be successful, because I think they have some really interesting ideas, and I would like to see some new wrinkles get introduced into pinball.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how they do.
I think it's definitely going to make a pretty big comeback. Last year, like he said, we went to Southern Fried in Atlanta, and you could definitely tell the big distinctions between the pinball players and the video gamers.
It almost a soft rivalry between the two of them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like there should be, but sometimes it just gets that way. Yeah. And see, they're having tournaments there too. So you got to remember, like, a chunk of the pinball. I don't know what percentage, but I mean, they're having like a legit tournament with points for national rankings and all this kind of stuff going on, right? So there's players there who are there to compete. And they couldn't care at all about the video games. That they're there to play not just pinball, but those specific like 10 pinball games. So.
So I enjoy them both, but I am quite miserable at pinball.
I'm terrible at it.
I'm actually no good either. I really am not, but that's a great thing about it, though. I mean, it's just like bowling.
Learning curve.
You can be really good and throw a mean hook and average 225 or something, or you can just be a hacker and go throw it down the middle and be happy if you get to like 100. And you can either way, you can still have a blast with your buddies. You can just go out there and drink a couple of beers and throw some balls and just have fun. And it's the same with pinball. I mean, you can be someone who's awesome and tries to get to the wizard mode on all the games and set high scores and compete in tournaments. Or you can just go and just play and just enjoy it. If you just be glad if you can get like one multi-ball going. So
pinball is how possibly one of the most famous video game players got started. Billy Mitchell, he said that was his start, was pinball. He said he hated like the video games. Like Pac-Man was just the machine that was in his way until finally he got on it, and he just dropped it.
I actually didn't know that about it. That's interesting.
That's
interesting.
We actually did a small talk with him last year as well.
Okay. Oh, cool.
It was he's not what you would think he is.
No,
we'll say that.
Well, and he kind of deal. There's Billy Mitchell has a sort of movie persona or online persona.
I've compared him mostly to a professional wrestler.
He knows how to play a heel. And but I've heard from multiple people that he's a very different person, and he can actually be a really nice guy. And I got to see a little bit of that too. I was at the not last year's Southern Fried, but the first one before.
Oh, nice!
And he was there and doing some. He had a thing where you could go play Pac-Man against him, and some other things that he did, and he just seemed very, personable. He talked to a lot of the show attendees, and signed things. And
I never saw him once say no to a picture or an autograph. Even though he still carried that persona with him, he wasn't just going to tell you to bugger off.
No. I mean, He just. And the thing is, I mean, he got that. I don't know. I don't know him really, and I certainly didn't know anything about him before, seeing King of Kong. But I almost gather, the thing about King of Kong is, there were certain elements of that were not entirely truthful.
The way the editing was done, very misleading.
I don't know how much of that he knew about beforehand. Maybe none. or maybe a lot. I'm not sure, but you could almost imagine if he basically said, "Yeah, I'll be the bad guy here." I don't care.
He's like, I can make a buck off.
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know anything. I don't have any reason to necessarily think that he did do that, but it wouldn't surprise me. But or it just happened and he just embraced it. It just came out that way, and he said, "Okay, whatever. That's fine. I'll be the bad guy," and it worked.
Yeah.
One thing about Pints and Pixels, I was going to ask, do you feel extreme pressure opening an arcade in a time where there's like an arcade drought? You know what I mean?
I feel the pressure more from just the difficulties of running a bar and restaurant than I do the arcade, really. There's definitely plenty of pressure to go around, however you want to find it. But I wouldn't look at it so much as a arcade sort of desert. To some degree that might be true, but hey, look, if you're the only guy, if you're the only guy in the desert selling water, you're going to do well, right?
Yes, very true.
But it's mainly, do you have enough people to sell the water to? And because there's been a lot of these arcade bars that have popped up over the last, say, dozen years. It started. Most people say it started in Portland with Ground Control, and then pretty soon after that, Barcade in Brooklyn, and then there's been other ones that popped up in between across the country, and now every major city has at least one, and usually now 2 or 3 or 4. Chicago has maybe 4 or 5 now, I think, and they've almost all either are just doing well as their own location, or they've done well enough that they've gone and expanded into adjacent space and then added food. Maybe they started off just bar and games, and then they later added food, or they added a second location, in some cases a third location. So the concept overall, and this isn't one big chain. These are all just independent operators. Yeah. They can't all be exceptional managers of restaurants and bars, right?
Yeah.
So if they're all doing well, and statistically, some of them are probably just mediocre or even bad, but they're still in business, then there's something about the concept itself that's working. So I felt very good about the concept, especially after I went to a few places and got a better understanding of what it really was and who the audience for it was and so forth. But we're still probably going to be one of the smallest cities in the country with this type of concept in it. So that's where there's a test, more than anything else. And by the way, I should say there have been a couple of them that I have heard about that have failed, have closed. But it's 2 out of 20 or something, which compared to the normal restaurant or bar averages is flipped. It's right. So, so I think that's a really good number. But again, they're almost all in much larger cities. So. I did take one trip to Boise, Idaho, for the first Grinkers. I can't remember what they call that thing now, but it was basically a meetup of the Arcade Outsiders podcasters. One's in Boston, one's in somewhere in Minnesota, and the other one's in San Diego, and they all met up at this place in Boise, Idaho. And all of these guys are on KLOV. I say KLOV, but some people say KLOV. Anyway. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And so this guy, Steve, he goes by Idaho Farmer on there, and has this place, Grinkers, in Boise, or Eagle, Idaho, actually, which is kind of like their Boise's Madison, basically. Mm-hmm. Their metro area is not that much larger than Huntsville's. It's at most maybe 25% larger or something like that. So I went to that. And I sent him a message and said, hey, if I come up there, if I fly up there and come to this thing, could you sit down and chat with me a little bit about your business? Because I'm thinking about doing something similar. And he said, yeah, come on up, we'll talk shop. So I did, and I sat down and talked to him for probably an hour and a half. And he shared all kinds of information, numbers-wise and everything, and how he went about hiring people, and, what he paid in utilities, and just all kinds of stuff. And they weren't really to a point of being profitable quite yet at that time. That was 2 years ago. I assume they're still open. So, and they were growing at the time. So I suspect now they're probably doing great. He said they were ahead of their projection, their initial 3-year plan. So that was encouraging, and I also felt, and not to disparage his place because I think it's fantastic. It's just slightly different than what I wanted to do in the sense of the balance of what's there. So his place on the video game side is amazing. It has like over 100, I think it's like 140 games or something. It's like 3 times or whatever that we're going to have. So wonderful arcade, all kinds of obscure titles, rare stuff, that you can't really play anywhere else almost, or maybe 2 or 3 places across the whole country that have a certain game that he has on the floor. So love it. But a small food menu and a very small bar menu, just a handful of beers and no spirits or anything, just beer. So I felt like if he's doing okay with that, I think if he had more, and his food was cold subs basically, their own menu, not better than Subway, but.
Yeah,
but still, it's just cold. It's cold food. So I mean, on a Friday night, usually you're not really, and you're out with friends drinking beer and playing games. You're really probably not wanting a cold sub.
Yeah, you want something crazy and awesome.
Right, some bar food. So I think he could probably make more money, but his place is what he wants it to be. So I'm not at all. I just feel like though that in terms of being successful financially, I think with the mix that we're going to have here, I think we'll have an even better shot. So. And I'll tell you, the response so far, just organically from, on social media primarily, has been really, really strong. We get messages every day about if we're open or when we're going to open or what the hours are.
I know there's quite a few number of people from Coleman looking forward to coming up.
Yeah, we made a post about coming up here, and we had a bunch of people that were posting about how excited they were, and a couple that thought it was already open.
Yeah, and we've had some just walk in because if we don't lock out the elevator, sometimes people just see the sign and go, "Oh, it's it must be open," and they just go in. And I hate to have to tell them like, "No, sorry," but you can look around for a minute if you want, But anyway, so there seems to be some pent up demand for it to open, and we're for us, I just hope that. And this is where I feel the most pressure, honestly, is that when that initial rush happens, and I think that's probably what's going to happen, is there's going to be like this big rush at the beginning, that we have our A game, or at least our B game, enough in terms of getting food out, getting it, out hot and cooked right, because the food part of this is has the most moving parts to it in a way,
Machines are going to be there doing their thing unless they break. It's got to be made.
And I mean, pouring beers is pretty straightforward. I mean, we've got a good tap system in place, and I feel like we're going to be okay there. I'm sure some of our mixed drinks might be a little slow at first, but this town is right now all about craft beer.
That's one thing we were going to ask about. Me and Brandon like our beer, and we assume you're going to have a very rather impressive.
Well, it's one of those things.
The local scene, kind of.
Compared to 10 years ago, what we're going to have would probably have been called very impressive. Nowadays, everyone's craft beer game has gone up so many steps that, I think we're just trying to kind of be level with the rest of the world. Which is a great situation to be in for the city, though. I love it. I mean, you can go so many places and get, 20 or 30, taps of mostly craft beer, a lot of locals, a lot of regionals, and the brewing scene here has blown up in the last decade. I mean, just absolutely exploded. And it's all the way from Birmingham, to Huntsville, to Madison.
I don't know. I can't hardly walk into a convenience store without seeing like straight to L or something.
Yeah, I mean, even at the BP or whatever, you're still going to see that stuff. I mean, so we would definitely want to support that and sell that along with some national stuff too. But we're going to have a heavy emphasis on locals, for sure.
That's awesome.
But anyway, the kitchen. I just feel like we're going to have a couple of days of training, and then we're going to be open. And so at first we may have some slow, orders. Ticket times maybe a little long, and while we kind of get things figured out. But if people will be a little patient on that side with us, I think it'll be good in the end. I mean, Anaheim Chili. Have you guys ever been there?
I haven't.
Okay. Well, it's on Cecil Ashburn Road in Huntsville, and that's southeast Huntsville, Bailey Cove sort of area down there. Close to that, there's a Target shopping center real close down there, and like a Carmack movie theater.
Yeah.
Anyway, Scott Harriman, the owner there, has been in the restaurant industry in Huntsville for over 20 years, and he's been running Anaheim Chili now for about 4 years, and that's his original concept that he opened. They're doing great, and so this is kind of like a second location for him, and he's actually going to, as part of the deal we have where we kind of license those recipes and the name and logo and everything from him. It's basically kind of like a pseudo franchise arrangement. Yeah. But as part of it, since this is only the second location and we know him, he's actually going to be our general manager. So that will be huge in terms of having all that experience on the restaurant side, that the rest of the ownership team did not have.
Yeah.
And if we were doing all this and without someone like him, I think we would probably really fall on our face on the restaurant part. Just to kind of be honest with you, but
running a restaurant's a whole different beast.
Yeah,
completely.
But we felt like as part of that whole thing about being in a smaller city, that we needed to be as inclusive as we could. And if we were just a bar, of course, then we're 21 and up only. And our expenses are a lot less, but still, you're really capped on what you can earn, compared to having a restaurant, just because of the restricted age. It's not so much that you're going to make a ton of money selling the food. You hope to make a little, but it's more that it just allows people to, a whole family to come in on a Saturday and and play games and do everything that they normally wouldn't be able to. So we're gonna try to go full bore with this and see how it goes. That's a long answer for one question. Sorry.
That's fine. You got a lot of nice machines here. Which one are you most proud of? If there's this one.
I don't. It's a really tough thing to answer because I collected these in a fairly rapid period for the number of games. I say that the guy Steve in Idaho collected more in less time, but in our case, a lot of the stuff we got needed significant restoration and repair, and so half of that. Let's say we've been doing that for 3 years. Well, 40 to 50% of that 3 years has been just restoring things and getting things working, and capping monitors and putting on new side art and all the stuff you have to do.
Yeah.
And so there's a pride of just owning a game because it's one that you're very nostalgic for, or because it's rare. And in that case, I would have to go with my Japanese Taito Space Invaders cabinet. Space Invaders here, pretty much, if you see it, it's the Midway version, which was they were the U.S. distributor basically for Taito. But I have an imported Japanese cabinet.
Nice.
And so it looks a little different. The artwork is more colorful. It's a full color vinyl artwork instead of the stencil. Now, I like the stencil job. I'm a fan of stencil art in general, to be honest with you. But somehow this just looks cooler on this case, and it actually has a joystick. Which, Space Invaders is a left-right button game.
Yeah.
It's to us, but apparently in Japan it was a joystick game, left-right joystick. So I thought that was kind of neat, and I tend to prefer just have a joystick than using two buttons to move it anyway.
Yeah.
So I like that one a lot. It's not on the floor yet, but it will be. We have to get there's a monitor issue we have to deal with on it. And it's kind of a weird monitor. But we'll figure it out. We'll get it on the floor when we can. But so definitely that one I'm very proud of. In terms of what's on the floor, maybe the Pac-Man. That was a pretty big just restoration job. We stripped it down to we sanded it down pretty thoroughly. Did a lot of Bondo work on it. There was a whole part of me almost hated to do this, but it was just too far gone. If it was a pretty good looking game and it still had these carvings in it, I would have left them, but it was so far gone I just had to kind of start over on it. But it basically had kind of like a high score table carved into the side of the game.
Wow.
So it wasn't they didn't have the scores, but they had basically carved their name in there if they had like the high score, and then you could see like names were scratched out and then had a name under it. So it had like maybe 6 or 8 names, and they were all scratched except for the one on the bottom. So they just started at the top and kept working their way down. Somebody beat, somebody, they scratch it out and carve in their name. Because Pac-Man didn't have initials and it didn't have any high score table. It just had a number at the top. So they just made their own. And it's some people like to keep that stuff on the games. And like I said, I thought about it, but I don't know. I went ahead and just did the restore job. So they're whoever held the record is now, his name is now lost to history. But but I think if you look at the game, I just think it looks, it's. Like I said before, I like stenciled art, and the Pac-Man and this Pac-Man art are some of the most complex stenciled art that you'll see.
Definitely.
And when they're done, right, they just look so beautiful.
It becomes like a literal work of art.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, and so we've got it positioned to where you can really see that, when you come in the door, and so that, I guess that definitely is one we're proud of.
Is there any machines that you really wanted to add to here, but it's just eluded your drafts so far?
Yeah, Discs of Tron.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't gotten one of those yet, and I really want one. They're very expensive. They're just rare, and it's Tron, and so those two things equal money.
Yeah.
So we'll get one at some point. But we just got to find the right deal, and I try not to ship stuff so much anymore because stuff gets damaged.
Yes,
and it's one thing to buy a game that's, or like say you get a bulk deal and you get 6 or 8 games, and but the average price is $400 or $300 or something, and then you pay an additional $500 or $600 to have them all shipped, and if one of them gets a little damaged or something, well, it might have been a project anyways, but. If you go spend like $3,500 on this Disc of Tron, and then it gets crushed somehow by a forklift in the warehouse on the way to you, that's a real heartbreaker. So I will get one. You can't get everything in a couple of years. It just takes time. Sometimes you're going to have that game that just takes time. And so that one's probably at the top of my list. There's others, but that one's definitely at the top of my list.
Out of what you got, what's been the hardest to get a hold of?
Mr. Do. That was. Do you guys know that game? By the way?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I know a little bit.
Got one yes,
about
one no. Okay. So Universal, the company that made that. They probably had some original games, but the 3 games that are kind of considered their best and most well known are Mr. Do, Cosmic Avenger, and Ladybug, and they're basically all knockoff games. Ladybug is kind of a Pac-Man clone, and Cosmic Avenger is a what's it called? Scramble clone, and Mr. Do is basically a Dig Dug.
Okay.
But they did a great job of 2 things. They took the game and they made enough changes to it to where it became its own unique game and interesting, and generally they added complexity.
So it's more than just a reskin.
Right. It's definitely more than a reskin. With Ladybug, you're trying to eat dots in a maze, more or less, but you also have these swinging gates that you can use to block off the enemy bugs, and that adds a ton of strategy. They also added almost like a pinball element where you can collect letters to spell a word. So like if you hit all the drop targets on a pinball game, maybe you spell a word and you get some bonus.
Mm-hmm.
They have that. You can actually earn. How many video games have you ever heard of where you can earn a free game? Where you can do something in the game to where you can actually get a credit to where you can play a whole another game afterwards. That doesn't happen in video games.
No.
That's a pinball concept, right?
Yep.
But they put that in some of their video games. You can. I can't remember if you can do that in Ladybug, but I know you can do it in Mr. Do. There's this diamond that you can get. It's very rare, but there's ways that you can try to get it, and if you do, you actually get a whole new game.
Huh.
I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And they have things that you can spell and bonuses you can get for that. So, it adds. It's one of those things that it adds complexity, but it's complexity that you can choose to ignore and just play the game in its most simplest mode. In which case, it's 90% like whatever they cloned. But if you care to pay a little closer attention, you find more depth. And so I think they did a great job with those. And so Mr. Do is easy to find in terms of games that have been converted to it. It's just hard to find ones that it's a dedicated cabinet.
Yeah.
And so I said they did 2 things great. One was all the little changes that they would make to make the game more fun and add more depth. And the other one was the cabinets themselves from the front. From the sides, they just have this kind of 70s sort of striping look that's, kind of cool now, but it's not, it doesn't have the kind of really cool looking art that like Missile Command or Dig Dug or something has, or Asteroids or something. But from the face, they added an extended bezel behind the main monitor bezel with its backlit. And they did the artwork so that it would continue the same art scene from the back bezel down through the main bezel glass. And so when the whole thing is on and lit up, they just look beautiful. The artwork on them is just amazing. And so Mr. Do definitely is when you have the dedicated one, it's just a beautiful game to look at. And it's a ton of fun.
On that note, you ever think about running MAME cabinets or anything like that?
No. We want to run original hardware. That's a topic we could spend a lot of time on. So I won't try and go too much into it. There are rare exceptions where we're willing to run a modern board as a replacement for original hardware, and in all cases we have the original hardware. It's just a matter of some systems are known to be more problematic, chips overheating and whatnot, and there's always things you can do to try and bulletproof a little bit, but at the same time, if there's a modern replacement board that is spot on 100% accurate for the original, why not? I mean, I look at it as, why not go ahead and, this is a business. I mean, having to pay guys to fix games costs money. If we can do that and it work and be reliable, and someone who's really, really amazingly good at that game can come in and play it and not tell the difference, then I don't really see the harm. So, and in the case of, and to give you an example of that, Joust. Mm-hmm. So, you guys were talking about earlier that you had spoken to the Berserk record, Joel.
Yeah.
I'll try to make this story quick, but if you guys know who Lonnie McDonald is?
I don't.
Okay.
The name rings somewhat of a bell.
He's one of, I won't say but one of the world record holders in Joust. There's depending on the settings and whatnot, there's different people on different records. So he doesn't own all of them, but he owns at least one, I know. And he's an amazing Joust player. And he did kind of this tour a few years ago where he went around the country. I'm not sure. I think maybe his job has him traveling a lot, and so he made a mission kind of it to so Joust has a high score mechanism to where it kind of rolls over like a car odometer and it goes back to zero. A lot of games do that. But when you do that and then you finish your game, you'll just get a score of however many nines it can hold. Even though you rolled it during gameplay, it doesn't put that on the scoreboard. It was smart enough, they or maybe lucky enough or whatever, I don't know, but to where when you finish, you actually put your initials in, it'll just put a score of like 9 million and then all nines after that. So he kind of made it, and the high score, the world record high scores are way beyond that number. But anyways, he kind of just decided to be fun or whatever or challenge to do that to 100 machines, to roll that over and put an all nines high score on 100 different Joust machines around the country. And he's logged it with the serial numbers of all the machines, and he knows where they were and everything. And he did that a couple of years ago, and then since then I think he's now kind of on a new thing where he's trying to roll at least one machine in every state. He's got a handful of states left he hasn't done yet. And so a couple of weeks ago, we get a Facebook message from Lonnie McDonald, and he says, hey, do you have a dedicated Joust machine? And then like he has kind of put in a kind of like a SIG, like Joust world record holder or something like that, And I was just like, and he said something later about it, because I'm sure he thought, this guy has no idea who I am or whatever, and I was like, so he said something to kind of indicate, like who he is, and besides just the SIG, and I said, no worries, I know who you are. You're among friends. And I said, yeah, we've got one, and and he says, I'd like to come up and play it, and Mac put a max high score on it. And I said, we'd love for you to do that. We think that'd be awesome. When were you thinking of when were we going to be in the area or whatever? He says, I'm driving through Alabama today.
Oh man.
oh my goodness, like, well, I tell you what, man, we're not open yet, but I get it, you're coming through, we're gonna open the door for you, come on in, and and play, and we'll get the machine set up and you can play. And so he says, okay, well, I'll be getting in around dinner time if you want to grab a bite, and then we can go back and play. Sure, okay. So we had dinner and just chatted about stuff, and then we came back and he sat down, and we had a hiccup with the game at first. Of course, it had to die after, but it was only like 10 minutes in or something, if that.
Yeah.
So we reset it, or figured out the problem, got it working again, and of course I told you about using this board that was so reliable. It actually wasn't the board's fault, so it was another issue. But anyway, he played it. It took him 4.5 hours, and it takes him between 4 or 5 hours depending on how good of a game he has. And he's amazing to watch. I mean, absolutely amazing. And it's a combination of things. He knows the AI of the game, like better than the programmers, basically.
Yeah.
And he just has the reflexes and the speed and whatever, and his CPU on that is running so fast that he can just react to things very quickly, and it was fun to watch him. But yeah, I mean, that runs, and he told us, I told him, I said it's run J-Rock, which is the sort of pseudonym of the guy who wrote this multi-waves replacement board, and modern. It's a FPGA board, and he said, I love J-Rock. They're great. They're perfect. You can't tell the difference. I mean, I'm saying, look, if Lonnie McDonald can come in here and say, I can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
The layman man.
Then I'm okay with it. I'm okay with running that. But anyway, for the most part, 90% of our games are all original hardware.
It's good. Yeah. On the note of high scores, are y'all going to do any high score events or keep record of high scores set on machines? Yeah,
we've got a couple of big blackboard marker boards that to track that stuff on. So it'll be a kind of thing where you just have to get a server or someone to come over and kind of verify your score.
Yeah.
And then we'll put it up there. And of course, the fun thing is we're going to put Lonnie on there with his all nines joust. He gets the first one on the board, and it'll never go away because you can't really beat that. We didn't really track what his actual score was. It was just he just wanted to roll it.
Yeah.
And by the way, he set that score, and then it took him I think probably 15 minutes at least, maybe 20 minutes to just kill off all of his extra lives. He had so many, like 150 or more, we didn't recount them, but well over 100 lives in reserve, so we just ran them into lava over and over and over again until finally he could put his initials in.
Yeah,
I mean, that's insane, isn't it?
When we were interviewing Joe West, he's talking about setting the record for, not Berserk, what's the console version?
Frenzy.
He's talking about setting the
it's like the sequel.
Yeah, he was talking about setting the record for playing that long.
And he had like 100 and...
I was asking what was his plan for doing a bathroom break and trying to set the world's record and playing it the longest. He said, well, I get so many lives, I got so many minutes I can walk away and use the bathroom.
Yes, he's wanting to do the longevity record, like do the 48-hour straight marathon or something like that.
I think it's 72.
It's a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah. Certain games, you can stockpile enough lives to where you can actually go to sleep for like an hour.
Yeah.
And still be alive on your game and come back up and keep playing. And that's what they've done. Like Qbert is one of those where they've, the world record in terms of, it's one of those things where in order to set the score record, you more or less have to set the time record. So, but, it takes like 3 or 4 days. It's ridiculous. But they plan it out, and they know. I think they generally will have someone there with them to track how many lives they have and so forth. So if they, starting to get into trouble, they run low on lives, they can wake them up or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But now on Joust you can't do that because you do die fast enough to where he was telling us that you can only have, I think, 255 lives. So they just, have a byte to track lives, and so.
Yeah.
But like on Qbert, it can store a higher number. So you can get hundreds, many hundreds, and you can. And I don't know how long it takes. The other fact, there's two factors, right? How many lives you can have in reserve, and then how long does it take one of them to die?
Yeah.
If you just do nothing, and you die pretty fast on Joust on the higher levels. I'm not sure what it's like on Q*bert, so I couldn't speak about that. But anyway,
it's like the Pac-Man trick where you can park him in the little corner. And he goes to go around him all the time.
Yeah. Pac-Man, just before we get off the high score sort of topic, which we've kind of wandered onto. If you don't track, I don't know if you guys track that much at all, but Billy is kind of regarded as like the first person to do a perfect game.
Yeah.
Right. And but the interesting thing about that is because there's this concept of a perfect game, that was in terms of score. But there's now kind of evolved a new way to compete at that, and which is in time.
Yeah.
To get the perfect game, but to do it faster. And so they're having to find new patterns, so that they can get through the boards, but still get all the bonus from all the ghosts and all the fruit and everything, and never die. But do it, in so many seconds, faster than the current record.
Yeah.
And I just find that amazing that there are people out there who are so competitive about that, and so, let's face it, you have to somewhat be just obsessed about it to figure that stuff out. And nowadays they can use MAME and things like that as tools to help them in determining, that because you can
pause,
save states, and stuff like that. So that helps. But nevertheless, just the fact that they can even do that at all is just amazing to me. And I saw a video of a guy doing it, and I don't know if you've ever watched people solve Rubik's cubes, and then seen a computer solve a Rubik's cube, and they don't look anything alike generally.
Yeah.
And the computer is kind of turning it, but you don't really see the order. You don't really see what it's doing, and then all of a sudden, in 3 or 4 moves, it just all comes together. Whereas in a human, you see them, they'll top down, and they'll do a side, and the computer doesn't really do that because it doesn't have to think that way. It can see the whole cube all the time.
Yeah.
So these guys are basically developing Pac-Man patterns that are kind of like the cube patterns. They'll leave a single dot. They're eating a row of dots, and then there's one more to finish before there's a gap or something, and they'll turn and leave that dot sitting there, which nobody would ever do.
Yeah.
But they have to do it in order to get to a turn before a ghost gets there or something, as part of their pattern. And so they wind up doing some very weird things, but it always works out in the end. And of course, they also know that they can go through ghosts at certain points. So part of the pattern is time to, run into a ghost actually right at a certain point to where you can exploit that bug or whatever. And I don't know the details of that bug, but I know they're if you watch them do those patterns, you'll see that every now and then they'll just go right through a ghost.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but I love that stuff. I love watching that stuff.
Yeah, it's insane. Not only are they running perfect games, so that I can do it faster than you, and I can break the game to do it.
Yeah.
As far as arcade games go, is there a game you excel at more than others? Or just a personal favorite?
Honestly, not really. I can't. I told my buddies earlier that I have kind of a little goal in the back of my mind where once this thing's finally up, because I've been collecting all these games. I've been spending so much time collecting and restoring these games, I almost never play them. Mm-hmm. But I'm hoping that I will get to a point where once we're kind of stable and in a groove with this thing, to where I can play a little bit. Because I do obviously enjoy playing the games.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the answer is going to be yet, but I want to find something that I can be good enough at to have the our little local high score. Yeah. And I'm not trying to go for any world records or anything, but if I just good enough to where I can actually have the local high score. So I think if I can find one and spend a little time just focusing on that one, maybe I can do that. But I haven't really figured out which one that's going to be yet. I'm okay at Miss Pac-Man. I mean, not truly competitive, in terms of the world, but I specifically really mean with the speed hack, Miss Pac-Man.
Oh yeah, that's the best way.
Yeah, I mean, I love that one, and it's funny though. I found that some people find that harder.
Really?
Because it just moves so fast that they can't keep up with the turning in time and stuff like that. But to me, it's insanely easier because you're so fast, and the ghosts are the same as they always were, at the beginning.
Yeah,
and later on, they
catch
a
lot faster.
Yeah, so the first 5 or 10 boards, you're so fast that you can just blow through them. There's still a little challenge in trying to get all the points from maximizing, getting all the blue ghosts and stuff. But I mean, I don't know. So the only reason I say that is because you could, I could put a quarter in that, play that for maybe 20 or 30 minutes if I have a really good game. But a lot of times there, as it gets later, like at the beginning, I'm trying to eat every ghost and get all the points. But then, as they start getting faster and the blue time starts to ramp down, I just basically start eating the maze and just blowing through
just trying to
boards.
survive.
Yeah, just to see how many screens I can get through before it's over. So, but no, I wouldn't even say I'm really even that particularly great at that. It's just I don't know. I got to find something though. I got to find something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to be. I know it's not going to be Joust.
I'm terrible at Joust.
Oh, I am too.
Absolutely garbage.
We had some questions from social media, and that was one of them.
Okay.
What games were you good at, and what's your high score? Gallagher guy sent us an email. He said he's asking, are kids allowed to come play, and is there going to be family nights? Which I think you touched on earlier.
Kids are welcome. We talked about doing. We had said actually publicly even that we were going to be 19 and up after 7 p.m. And family friendly before that, and the only exception being Sundays where we close at 8, so we just would be family friendly all day. Then we got some questions from the Beverage Control Board about whether that was allowed or not. Like they weren't sure, but they thought maybe that wasn't something we were allowed to do with a restaurant license. There's different types of liquor licenses, and ours is a restaurant license, and so that allows us to be all ages. And it's my understanding that we could be more restrictive than that if we wanted to, even just at certain times of the day. And I still think that that's probably true.
That would make the most sense.
They thought that they just weren't sure. And I'll put it that way. They didn't say you can't do that. They just said, I'm not so sure that you can do that. You might want to check or something like that. So we're working on getting the answer to that. But at the same time, I think we're just going to go ahead and launch with just being all ages all the time and see how it goes. We don't want to have too many, there's a couple of issues here. One is you don't want to have a lot of problems with underage folks trying to drink.
Yeah.
We are, we're a restaurant, but we're pretty, we have a pretty heavy focus on the bar part of our restaurant, and I could see that, we're going to have to be really diligent about not serving underage folks.
Yeah.
So, and one way to do that is to just have an age cutoff. Even if you're at 19 or 20, at least you're not, you're reducing the problem. You're still going to have some that you have to watch out for. I don't know. And then the other thing is just if you're trying to create a place where people who are in their 20s or early 30s are going to hang out on a Friday night, if that place is overrun with 12-year-olds, then it doesn't matter how cool they would otherwise find it, they're not really going to be there.
Yeah, you're also going to have the issue of some not so great parents that might come in and hammer away the beer while their kids are running wild.
Yeah, right. So we just have to we're really just going to kind of watch and see how it goes and see what the behavior, what patterns we see from our customers. And if things are cool, we'll just stay the way we are. We'll just stay family friendly all the time. Meanwhile, we'll make sure we understand legally what our options truly are, and just keep that as a backup plan in case we need it. But we're in downtown Huntsville, so the immediate area is not really surrounded by families. With like 8-year-olds and 12-year-olds and what. It's really. Actually, the immediate area is mostly folks that are much older, right? Who can afford to live in these homes downtown? They're pretty rich, largely. And if you've looked at these old historic homes anyway, now they're building all of these apartments, 2 blocks away.
Yeah, we know
200 apartment units.
And like I mentioned to him, they'd be lucky if you get cheaper than $2,000 a month there, probably.
I think that thing is going to largely be populated by young professionals.
Yeah.
And some empty nest folks that want to downsize, but I think you're going to have more young professionals there. That's perfect for us.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I think for the nighttime crowd, I think we would maybe just organically be what we want to be without having to enforce any rules.
Yeah.
So we're going to try and see. And then that way we can be, during the summer or whatever, kids can come in during the day. He gets to always come in on the weekends, and we want. I mean, I've been to a lot of these arcade expos, like you talked about, like at, Southern Fried. You guys have probably seen this. You go there, and one of the things that you see happen a lot is someone who's maybe in their 40s or 50s or whatever, and they're there with a young child, and they're showing them these games, and the kids are enjoying it, and they're checking out these games. They've never. I mean, they don't. We don't have it. Like you said, there's not a lot. In '83, you could go anywhere and there was games. There was video games at Walmart, at the convenience store, at the grocery store, at the music store. You go into a mall, and not only is there an arcade, there's an actual arcade, but there's games just at in different areas of the mall, just out in the walk areas, against the wall, and they were just all over the place. But in today's world, it's pretty rare. So there's all kinds of games here that those kids have never seen, and we want them to be able to get exposed to that stuff and have fun playing those games, and especially pinball. They've never seen pinball.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's been effectively dead. Over and over, I hear people say, "Oh, I didn't even know they still made them." Stern is still cranking out games, and there's some other boutique companies that have kind of popped up and are trying to make a go of it. But they're to the point where they make one game every few years, and Stern makes multiple games per year. So they're on a completely different level. But I mean, they're still cranking them out, but they've gotten down to where it was just Stern for a while. And so there's not tons of pinballs out there. A lot of these kids don't know how to play. They don't even know how to start the game, much less flip or save a ball or nudge or anything. I mean, forget that.
I know me and him pretty much grew up in an arcade and pinball drought. There's not much where we were. Coleman's not a big place anyway.
My most arcade experience I had, my dad owned a Galaga machine when I was little.
Oh, nice.
2 or 3. He had Galaga, and we had RoboCop at our grocery store. That's literally all I remember.
Anytime my parents were coming to Decatur, I begged them to come and play at the Decatur Mall where they had an arcade there, because that was just the coolest thing. That our skating rink had the small arcade area.
And I got to meet, I'm not sure, but I bet you I know the guy who ran that arcade.
Really?
I bought a couple of games from him, and he's an old arcade operator. He's been he ran stuff all around this area from back in the 80s, and he still has some stuff on location now, but back then he had tons of stuff probably. But it's funny the people you meet collecting all these games.
Talking about the newer games we made, Chasen on Facebook, he asked, will you ever have a Sky Cursor cabinet available to play? Have you seen Sky Cursor?
This just in. We have a Sky Cursor in our possession.
Really?
Yes.
All right.
It's we bought the mod kit, so you can buy a full cabinet that they go ahead and build out for you and ship, or you can buy the conversion kit. And basically all their stuff is made to work on. It's kind of set up to where it will it's most readily suited for us. Put it that way. The Dynamo cabinets, which are a generic cabinet that was made to just kind of hold whatever.
Yeah.
And we have several of those in our warehouse, and so I've got one that I've kind of earmarked for conversion to Sky Cursor. Absolutely, I think that's
awesome.
It's really neat that you got that question. I love what they're doing. I met a couple of the guys at the Louisville Expo last year. Not that they just had one, but it was a year ago, and played it. It was in early stages. Then they only had like the first stage complete. But I love what they're doing. I mean, they're building retro style games, new games. They're putting heavy emphasis on the art, making the art look really great and period sort of accurate, in terms of the styling. They put elements of their the game. Have you played it? Did you see it?
I watched it. I haven't played it.
Okay. I haven't played it.
I didn't know if it was at Southern Fried or not, but they it's got like 3 or 4 different weapons that you can get to shoot with your ship, and you can have them all at the same time. So normally in shoot 'em ups, like you have a gun, and then if you get some power up, it changes you to something else.
Yeah, and you start avoiding power ups sometimes.
Sometimes you want to keep what you have, right? And then sometimes you might get like kind of a bomb type effect that you can use on a secondary button, and you only have so many of them, stuff like that.
Yep.
But with this game, you can have multiple weapons that you can choose to use at any given time, and certain enemies are more readily killed with a specific type of weapon than others. So you kind of need to learn the enemies and how the feel for the weapons, and kind of, you'll maximize your score and your survivability if you can kill the enemy with the right weapon.
Yeah, I like that. It kind of brings a little bit of a modern twist to the old style
it's
shooter.
a little bit of like a first-person shooter concept going into a shoot 'em up.
Yeah.
And they specifically really looked at Doom for their inspiration for that. And it actually impacts both the gameplay in that way, but also a little bit on the art style. They've got the guy's little face down at the bottom or whatever and stuff, and that was kind of pulled a little bit from the Doom sort of feel too. So
yeah,
I think it's really neat what they're doing, and then the fact that they also created not just a game but a development platform. So they have, I think it's called Airframe or something like that, and they're running their game on that platform, but it's made so that other developers will be able to write for that platform as well, and do what they're doing too. So they're trying to not just create a company, but an industry, or at least a sub industry.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it, anyways. And I think that's phenomenal. I'd love to see more of that. There's like I said before, there's all these boutique pinball companies that are kind of popping up now that there's a bit of a resurgence, and I root for all those guys too. But we haven't seen outside of the Sky Cursor, guy, and I'm struggling now to remember their development team's name.
I don't recall.
But really, outside of them, I haven't seen anyone writing and trying to sell actual arcade cabinets that are retro style.
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of vintage style games on, the App Store, and or on Xbox or Steam. Take your pick. Some kind of downloadable game service. There's tons of arcade style stuff. 8-bit graphic stuff, and that's cool. And I think that's connected to the whole resurgence of interest in just all the retro gaming and everything. But I want to see more actual arcade games that are made, commercial games that are made to go on location and take a beating and earn money. That's it. I mean, you got to remember that the arcade games are not just a game; they're supposed to be simultaneously a game and a business.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's something that's still kind of lost, and they're trying to bring it back, and I hope there's more like them that do that.
That'd be really cool.
We'll have one. It probably won't be on the floor when we launch. It definitely won't be for our soft opening. I'm hoping I can get it ready for the grand opening. And we don't have a date that we can really put out there for the soft opening, or there wouldn't be all of that soft opening. But the grand opening, we're saying April 9th, and we feel pretty good about that. But yeah, hopefully I can get the Sky Cursor ready by then. I would love to. It's a cool game. We're going to have it.
I'm definitely going to have to come check it out.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. If you like shoot 'em ups at all, I mean, it's a cool
something else I want to ask you. Any chance of you getting a Dodon Pachi machine?
Maybe.
Punched my arcade cabinet a couple times playing that game.
I have a candy cab, You know what those are, right?
The Japanese.
The Japanese sort of sit down. They're like a plastic and
like
metal.
The Street Fighter cab we played up in.
And they usually have big monitors, and they're just generic. I mean, you can kind of. Some of them have little places you can put in little thin like paper marquees behind a piece of plexiglass or something. But they don't have a lot of artwork on them for the most part. They just they're just the joysticks and buttons, and you just kind of throw a board in there and let the screen kind of advertise for you instead of having like all the art and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I have one of those, and I have a handful of different shoot 'em up games that we can put in there and rotate out. That cab probably won't be on the floor at launch either, but we'll get it in here within the first few months. And I don't have a Dodon Pachi or anything like that yet, but I don't know if I have anything by Cave. Well, is Pro Gear? Have you ever played Pro Gear No Arashi? So that's one that I do have, and it's bullet hell. I mean, it's like big time. It's a horizontal, and it's a lot of fun, But we'll have different. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that we have. We have one called Sorker Striker or something like that. I don't remember. I've got to be honest. I can get out of my depth on shmup stuff real fast. I'm not real. I haven't been a big part of that scene or anything. I have a few boards. I haven't spent a lot of time playing them yet. I kind of bought them, just for the business, really, and so we're going to put them out there. I actually want to get to play some of them. Some of them look really fun. I just haven't actually had time to get and dig into them yet. But so I can't even list for you right now the names, but I could probably get them for you later or something. But
okay.
But we definitely want to cater to that crowd. We've identified certain genres of classic games that we feel like we need to have. You need to have some fighters. So we've got a Street Fighter 2. It's the anniversary edition where you can pick, like Turbo or Super or Hyper or whatever. And then Mortal Kombat 2 and Killer Instinct, and we've got others where we can rotate in. But we're not all about that, but we want to make sure we have at least a few for the folks that's their thing. And NBA Jam, you kind of got to have that. And,
yes. I love NBA Jam.
Side-scrolling beat-em-ups, you got to have some of those. And so we're trying to have different genres, and we definitely want to have some shmups. And right now we've got 1943, and that's really about it. I mean, except to the extent that you consider the really old school shmups like Galaga.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of to me what in the modern thinking of when you say shmup, I mean, really the history. Everything started with Space Invaders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the one that made the biggest change that led to what we have now, I think, was 1942. Where you had the boss ships come through, and you could play side by side with someone, and you had different weapons and power ups. All that stuff that's carried through to today. That I think of, I'm pretty sure at least that really started with 1942 and the scrolling graphics and all that stuff. So we don't have a 42, we have a 43. So still pretty far back there.
Oh, yeah.
But we want to have some more modern bullet hell type stuff too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
They're going to be doing any tournaments for like the Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and stuff?
Yeah, we do. We haven't really set any specific plans for that yet. We certainly don't have any dates for that set yet. We're just so focused right now on just getting open and just trying to get things running smoothly and everything working and all that.
Before you can do that kind of thing.
But we definitely want to have the occasional fighting game tournament, or even I don't know if anyone's ever done this, but a league. Could you have a fighting game league?
That'd be awesome.
Maybe that'd be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
cool.
Or NBA Jam League, or I think doing some competitive stuff like that, social. Part of the whole thing about this, that why the concept works is because it's social.
Yeah.
And so having leagues and having tournaments is ties into that directly. Everyone can play a million games on their phone and never leave their house. But despite that, people still love coming to these types of businesses. So part of the reason is there's a lot of reasons, but one of them is the social nature of it. Mm-hmm. We're going to support having, and of course in pinball as well, tournaments, and then or what they call pin golf, where you set objectives on each machine, and then it's like how many balls does it take you to accomplish the objective. So it's like strokes, in golf.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways that you can play it and have fun, and not have it take all day. That's one thing. If you get someone who's really good at a game, and it's a game where it's just like about points and how long you can play.
Oh yeah, they'll sit there for hours.
Play for hours. Suddenly you really can't do a tournament, or you can't do a league because it takes up all night. So you have to find ways to do it to where even that really great player isn't going to be on there all day long. Yeah. So pinball is so hard that, generally speaking, as long as you've got the game set up right, even a really good player can't play for like an hour or something.
Yeah.
That's something we've kind of done. We're starting a small game convention in Coleman.
Yeah.
And the trial run we did last year, he set up some speed run tables. And he was like, you got 5 minutes to get as far as you can. That way.
We did some Super Mario speed run and stuff like that.
They did two things at Louisville that I thought were good in that regard. One was the Galaga tournament on Sunday. So they had their game set up with fast bullet, and you got to play for 3 minutes. I think it was 3, something pretty short. And it made it for an interesting choice, because what do you want to do first in Galaga almost always? Get the second ship, right? You want to get captured and get the second ship so you can start mowing stuff down. But you're on fast bullet, so you can kind of already mow stuff down a little bit. It's not quite the same as having the 2 ships, but getting the second ship takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. You're investing like 15 or 20 seconds maybe out of your 3 minutes to get that second ship. So is it going to pay off? And I don't know I watched a bunch of people play, and I don't know if it was ever definitively answered. I saw people near the top that did and that did not get the second ship. I thought that was really interesting the way they had it set up. So you had to make a decision and then just go with it, and it was over quickly, no matter how good you were, and it could push through a lot of people in a short amount of time, and it was fun. And then the other thing they did was what they called the Fire Mario challenge. So that was a timed thing, a speedrun thing. You had to complete the first, stage 1-1 or whatever of Super Mario Brothers and finish the level as what they called Fire Mario, where you had the fireballs. Mm-hmm. So if you lose your flower or whatever, you can't win. Right. I mean, if you
disqualify.
Yeah. I mean, you'll lose. So the first thing you have to do is you have to successfully get through the thing with the fireballs. Yeah. And then it's about who did that the fastest. And so that has also got a fixed amount of duration. I mean, no one's just going to sit there for half an hour, right? I mean, you're going to be over. You're going to be done like in a minute, or however. I don't know how long it takes to get through that stage, but not that long. Yeah. So. Challenges like that you can do quickly, and people can just jump in. The rules are easy to explain. You can just jump in and play, and just make it a fun social event.
Definitely be the key. We're trying to do a bigger game fest this year. We're trying to incorporate all kinds of stuff like that. Just
cool.
To see how it turns out.
Okay, cool. So you did one already, and you're doing a second one coming up?
Yeah, we did a test run in our Civic Center and just rented like one of the side rooms.
Okay.
And, we had like 5 cabinets and about 30 consoles hooked up. And
wow, that's a good number of consoles.
We had about...
do you two own most of those just yourselves?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
that was all his then. Now I went from almost 0 consoles to 20 something.
Whoa!
So.
The only ones we're pretty much lacking right now is like a Neo Geo and
Jaguar,
TurboGrafx CD, Jaguar, some of the more expensive ones.
Now you're running on CRTs?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
We have a storage unit we rent that's got about 40
loaded with
TVs.
Yeah.
What's great about CRTs is some people just giving them away.
Yes, they do.
I just look on Craigslist.
You can find them on the side of the road.
But we found a few on the side of the road actually.
Yeah. And they usually work.
Yeah.
I mean, they just it's this huge box they want to get rid of, and no one will pay them for it, so they just put it out there.
We found a couple that didn't work, and all it required was us changing the fuses in it.
Oh, really?
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow, cool. But, I need to start finding some of those, because some of them you can actually use for arcade monitors.
Yeah.
That's kind of gold in this hobby. Is having good monitors ready to go.
Yep.
Or because you get something that's got a bunch of burn on it. And, that's really. I mean, those old CRTs are so few caps and it's right back alive. So you can't kill them except for by burning them. Obviously if you neck the tube and it's dead for life then. But I mean, but other than burn, I mean, they're electronically they'll just go and go and go. I mean, caps dry out, you put new caps in or whatever. You may have to replace a pot or something. But I mean, they just they're awesome and they look so beautiful. I mean, I could never. It just bums me out anytime I see that someone's advertising their arcade game that has an upgraded monitor.
Oh yeah, LCD screen.
Yeah.
It's like no, it's
I
not
enjoy playing these old games on my computer monitor, but it's just not the same.
It isn't. And the artist created those graphics on that media, so you just.
And in some cases, it can have some performance issues too. A lot of these new LCDs have little delays.
Yes.
So
yes, and on certain games that can matter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, big time. One thing I was on. Y'all plan on having a console room here as well?
Yes.
Right?
And it sounds like you guys are the folks I need to talk to help make that thing what it can be and should be, because. It's right now we really have a Super Nintendo and I'm not sure how many games, but let's say about 10 games. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of in its fledgling stages. We need to really expand it both in number of consoles and in more games for them, and we'll do that for sure. It's just a matter of personally myself, it's kind of funny. I somehow kind of skipped a generation or maybe 2 generations of console gaming. I grew up in the 2600 and ColecoVision and and television and all that kind of era. And then, for me, the thing I played the most was the Commodore 64.
That's one of the ones. I got a Commodore VIC 20 not long ago. I love that thing.
And then I went to college, and I didn't have any money, and I was just barely able to go at all. And so the idea of buying a console, buying games for it and stuff, just was completely not even on the radar at all.
Yeah. And
so I just kept playing games on my Commodore all the way through college. And what was happening while I was there? Well, Nintendo came out. I mean, the Famicom and the NES and Super and Sega and all that stuff happened in that very late 80s or very early 90s time period where I was either at college or just getting out and trying to get started in the world as a coder. And so and I pretty much went from that straight into just PC gaming. So I really never played those sort of mid-level history of consoles. Played the very early stuff, and of course I played like Xbox and things more recently, but and I think I kind of started picking back up around PS2, I guess.
Yeah.
So for me, there's kind of this hole where I didn't really play a ton of like Super Mario Bros. 3, or whatever, Star Fox or whatever. I mean, there's all these great games that I just didn't get a lot of experience with. I could play a little bit if I went to a friend's house or a family member's cousin or something, visit them and play on theirs. So I got some exposure to it, but. That's kind of like the weakest area of gaming for me, like in terms of knowledge and experience and everything, is in that era of consoles,
Yeah, we grew up with the Nintendo and Super Nintendo, and I know about the time the Dreamcast came out is when I went straight PC gaming.
Okay,
and so that's
PC
been
Master Race.
Yeah, yeah. The PC had so many great 90s games.
Oh,
like Baldur's Gate. I could play that so much.
Yeah.
I played Diablo. That was about it.
Diablo was
my
great.
PC gaming.
Oh, I mean, that's an all-time classic PC game for me. I mean, loved that game. Played it so long. Do you remember? So you played Diablo like when it was first out, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember the hacking scene?
Yes.
And the duping?
My friend had one of those not chat program, but the hack program you could bring up while you're playing. You could highlight a player and just kick them off the server. And I was just like, dude, that's such a dick move.
That's where I kind of got my first. I kind of get my first dealings with coding in. I'm not a professional coder, but I do dabble in it.
Okay.
And that's where I kind of got started learning how to hack games and stuff.
Okay.
Starting with hex editors and that kind of stuff. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And you can't do that with modern games because they do it all server side.
Yeah.
You can hack your client and think you're doing something until you die.
Yeah, there's folks that can do it. I mean, can sort of do it. I mean, people write bots and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a lot harder now than it was back then. But I mean, I remember because I actually wound up joining a guild, I guess, or whatever. I can't remember what they called it, a clan or a guild or what.
Yeah, that's before they even implemented anything in game for that.
Right,
there was a group of guys.
Yeah, there was nothing in game at all, and there wasn't really that much of a reason to be in any kind of a guild or anything at the time for that game, except that at least for me, and what I found was that there was some guilds popped up, and their whole reason for existing was to be anti-cheat.
Yeah.
So they'd say, look, if you want to go play single player by yourself and you want to create, I just pick items out of a thing and drop them onto your character, knock yourself out. But if you want to go online, we want to. People in this guild want to play totally cheat free.
Yeah. So
this is a guild where you can come and play with other people who are like minded, play the game the way the developers intended, and know that you're not, someone's not going to come in and like full godly play and wipe you out or something. And so. I actually formed a lot of friends in that game that I played, went on to play like EverQuest with afterwards, and then went on to play like World of Warcraft with afterwards and stuff. It all started because of that whole cheat scene in Diablo.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny. And I mean, I did it. Everyone did it. But you do it, and then you're like, okay, that was fun. But then, there's no challenge. I mean, it was so beyond. You could give yourself the absolute maximum, everything in 5 minutes. And so it was just like, well, okay, that was kind of interesting. But now I don't have a game anymore.
Yeah, you killed all the gameplay.
To me, it became killing the other hackers. Like that was what I started doing, figuring out how to out-hack them and kill them, get around their god mode hacks and stuff.
Yeah. And the funny thing was, we had one guy in the guild whose job was kind of unofficially, I guess, but I mean, he basically had. I mean, he was the one guy in the guild that if he wanted to, he could cheat anytime he wanted to. And it wasn't really written that way, but the reason why I say that is because he had just, all these dupe items and fake items and whatever, and the stuff that were really popular, that everyone would get, the rings with resist all maximum,
yes.
and, everything. And every now and then he would just randomly drop one on the ground in a game with other people. And if someone had that item, and it detected a dupe, it would either delete the item or something would happen. I don't remember.
Yeah.
He could tell if somebody else had the exact same item.
Yeah.
So he would catch someone that was supposedly in our no cheat guild, but they were cheating.
You got to use a cheat to catch a cheater.
Yeah,
that's right. That was the only way to do it.
And
you couldn't really prove what they had. You could say, well, hey, drop all your armor. Well, you can just have stuff sitting in his inventory.
Exactly.
And so you couldn't prove it. But if he throws down that godly player of the whale and it disappears, and he's just you and him, then you're busted.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah, Diablo was. I mean, and do you play D3 at all? Or
I haven't. I own it, but I have not even played it yet.
You haven't, not once?
I bought it for PlayStation 3 from a guy, and I just now recently rejoined the PC Master Race. They've got a gaming PC. Actually, last week.
I have it. I was disgusted with the initial state of it at launch.
Yeah.
And I've heard it's gotten a lot better with Reaper of Souls.
Yeah.
But I left such a bad taste in my mouth, I haven't got back into it.
I mean, if you like those kind of games and you like the whole Diablo sort of story and everything, not that it's a super deep story, but it's if you've been playing since the beginning, you've been following the story, so you're kind of invested in it.
Yeah.
I would definitely go check it out again now because it is so much better. I mean, it is just infinitely better. They almost went too far with the whole auction house thing.
Yeah,
because there's almost no economy now. So you're just kind of on your own. But on the other hand, you can pretty much there are ways for you to get what you're wanting to put together your build. I mean, it's Diablo. You're going to have to grind some to get what you want, but. You can put together some pretty fun builds pretty quick, and it's a lot of fun. That's the most recent game that I've actually spent a few hours on a weekend playing, which has been a while since I've been able to do that, but just because of the bar. But it's good.
Diablo's what instilled a real love of Gauntlet for me. I love the Gauntlet arcades.
Yeah, original.
Any of them.
Oh man, and. I mean, that game made so much money when it first came out. I mean,
I can imagine.
Dudes would go into the arcade with a $20 bill and just planning to just put it all into Gauntlet. And this is, an 85 or whatever. I mean, when that was, think of that as like 100 now.
Yeah.
Almost. Probably 60 or 80 maybe, and just going into can you imagine today going into an arcade with let's say 420s in your wallet, and I'm just going to put all of these into this game.
Machine. that'd be kind of.
I'm going to sit there for 3 hours or whatever it is, and just play this game until my fingers bleed and I'm out of money, and then just be happy. I mean, but they did. I mean, they essentially did that. It was. And I was the guy who didn't have $20 to be able to put it to a game. I wished I could have. I had maybe $1 and I was happy to get that much gaming out of it. But
hey, if you didn't have much, you go with the elf and you could stay alive quite a while.
Yeah, that's right. Hang back. And what's funny about Gauntlet? You can actually play that game strategically. You can play it where you can put in one quarter and play for a good while.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a continuation game, so most people don't really think of it that way. They just play and they just charge into things and start swinging the axe and doing whatever. But you can learn how the enemies move and where they're going to spawn and all this stuff, and you can be much more strategic, and it takes you longer. But you can go a long way on 1 or 2 quarters or something if you choose to play it that way.
Yeah.
There was a guy at the Southern Fried Expo that I bought that one, or it's around the corner, so you can't. I was trying to point at it, but I bought that one at that expo, and a guy there was actually showing me some tips and stuff on it, and I was like, wow, I didn't know you could play this way. For me, it was always just full speed ahead. Yeah. That's the way everyone always played it. But yeah, he was like, no, do this, do that. And at first I was kind of annoyed, like, dude, just let me play, But then I started realizing, I was like, he knows what he's talking about, So then I started listening. Yeah, Gauntlet was kind of the start of all that in a way.
Yeah.
Well, I say that. I mean, what was the game with Rogue? I mean, Rogue was really the start of that.
There's an entire genre named after it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Diablo in some ways was just a graphical, less complicated, sort of simpler, dumbed down Rogue.
Yeah.
I mean, with more story, voice acting and all that. I mean, all the Blizzard production values that made it awesome. And I don't mean to knock it because I think I've already expressed that I love the Diablo series, but essentially that started from Rogue.
Yeah, it did. And we weren't lucky enough to grow up around Gauntlet, so I played Diablo first, and then I came across the Gauntlet Legends or Legacy.
Yeah, Legacy. Legacy. Dark Legacy, I think maybe.
Dark Legacy, that's it. There's currently Legends and Dark Legacy. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. One of those two I came across. I was like, oh, this is real Diablo-like, and that led me to find the older Gauntlet games and really enjoy those.
I've never played the 3D Gauntlets.
They're okay. They're a big departure. Now the latest one that's on Steam, and I think they just released it on the consoles. It's more like the old Gauntlet games, but with modern twists to it.
Top-down sort of.
Yeah. They're a lot of fun.
On NES was my first experience with Gauntlet. I had never even played an actual Gauntlet cabinet until Southern Fried last year.
Someone had one there last year. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I think it was malfunctioning the second day, but it was first or second day because it was over beside Space Ace and Dragon Lair 2.
They had those there. Nice.
Yeah, neither one were working. Dragon's Lair 2, they said worked the first day, and it had the little sick arcade sticker on it the rest of the weekend. And Space Ace had the same problem.
Yeah, those are tough. The laser disc. Yeah. I mean, that's another case where we are willing to use a modern board to help us out there because we run the original hardware in terms of the PCB and the ROM set, but a guy has just very recently released a board that it's called Dexter, and it's basically a Laserdisc emulator on a board. So it has the inputs, the data cable input on it for the Laserdisc, and then it has the video output and everything. It has a little USB port where you can just put a thumb drive that has all the video files on it. And it will take the commands from the game that tell it to jump to this part of the disc and whatever, and just play that and just act like it's a Laserdisc player. The game doesn't know any different, but it's all solid state electronics and modern surface level and stuff, and so it's surface mount stuff, and so it's going to be we think that'll be super reliable, and that's a game where you really need it. I mean, those players can give you a lot of problems. We have the discs, we have the players, they actually work, but I just know that in terms of, it's one thing to have in your collection in your garage or your basement or whatever, and you fire it up on Saturdays for an hour or two, and then that's it, and it's off the rest of the time.
When it's on
every day for 12 hours, that's not going to last.
No, it's not.
So but I love those games though.
Yeah, the Laserdisc stuff's pretty. Dragon's Lairs made me utter a few words before I have to stay away from it. I like it, but
that was one of the first 50-cent games, and I which I was again I was kind of the poor kid in the arcade, so I was like, man, 50 cents. I only walked in here with 6 quarters, so to spend 2 of them on this one game, and then I'm not good at it, so I'm going to die fast. But I love the game, so I would still play it some, but. I just couldn't ever spend much on it. But
that's one you got to have that 24 to get anywhere.
But you watch. The cool thing, that game was so popular. If somebody was good and they were playing, they'd get to different stages that you hadn't seen before, and people would start watching, and then pretty soon you'd have a crowd around them.
Yeah.
And so they released an additional monitor that they could put on top. It's one of the few arcade cabinets that has a nice flat top, and so you can add a second TV up there. And the Laserdisc player can just drive that TV too, and people can watch from way around. Because they were trying to crowd in, and of course it's hard to play a game when people are all over your shoulders and stuff trying to watch you. And so we're going to try and see if we can put monitors on top of our Dragon's Lair and Space Aces. Not that we think there'll be big crowds around people, but just it's just part of the nostalgia and everything, and to have that up there. So
that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's about
wrapping up.
All right.
April 9th.
April 9th, grand opening. If you don't do well with crowds, maybe wait a couple of days. But if you want to be part of a big crowd, come on down. Oh, and we got a message. I don't know what they're going to give away or whatever yet, but we got a message from a Nintendo of America sales rep, local guy, and he's going to try and come out for the grand opening and have like a little table and have some swag and stuff that he can give out and have some probably have like a Wii U set up with some games and stuff people can play. So we're going to try to support that. I don't know where we're going to put him yet, but we'll figure something out. I think there'll be a lot of people who. We're about vintage, but I mean it's Nintendo.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Of all the modern consoles,
that's still
theirs is like that has the most like. They kind of always have a foot firmly still back into the past.
Oh yeah.
Because every console they release. First off, they're all about first-party titles, right? Their own stuff, They're all the Mario stuff, all the, which now that's like 20 games. Yeah. All the Paper Mario. Luigi.
They have a Mario in every genre of game.
Yeah. There's fighting Mario. There's racing Mario. I know they have different names, but I'm just saying, that you could just almost just call it like, whatever. Just pick, like I said, pick a genre, Mario, or one of the characters, and they always tie back to their history. They're the most connected to their history, and so I love that about them. So we want to support them.
Yeah, I'll definitely be bringing my kids about here sometime. I know my little girl, she's finally getting into video games. She's 6, and Wii U she's fell in love with it. She loves Mario and Princess Peach from Family.
Good.
She's all about that. So she'll
keep her away from Call of Duty.
Yeah, definitely.
Make sure that happens.
She'll definitely get a kick out of this stuff. Stepson would too.
But, we definitely like what y'all got going on here. It looks great. And
Thank you.
We're very excited. And we really appreciate you taking time to talk with us.
Well, I've enjoyed it. Hey, look, everyone likes to talk about their new thing that they're doing, right? Anybody that's starting a new business, they love to talk about their business. So, of course, I'm excited to do that. So, I enjoyed it, guys.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll have this up online probably Thursday next week. So we usually drop. So, check them out. Pints Pixels on Facebook. Website's pintspixels.pub.
.pub, right.
Check them out on there. And as always, game over, man.
Game over.